Welcome back to Comic Book History, episode 13. And this one we're talking about Justice League America Volume 2, a volume that only lasted for 60 issues, and a couple specials, and a couple one-shots here and there. This particular book was known for having at least 4 different writers on it over the course of 60 issues. The original writer was the writer of Identity Crisis, Brad Meltzer, who was only the writer for the first 12 issues, handed off to the late great Dwayne McDuffie for issues 13 to 33, and then handed out briefly to Leen Wein for a few issues, and then pretty much the rest of the volume was done by the awesome James Robertson. Simply put, when the Thing decided to jump 1 year later, the Thing started with issue 0, and it had the Trinity, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, basically decided to reform the Justice League. Now, I should point out there was Justice League during the 1 year jump. The incarnation of the Justice League, led by, of all people, Firestorm, which not a bad idea, but his Justice League is a bit of an underrated, and they didn't do all that much. They just come together just because, well, there needed to be a Justice League. And that's the thing about DC. Justice League is one of those handful of teams that DC has that just has to be around no matter how many times they try to disband them. And these other groups basically go along with them to do that is the Justice Society, the Teen Titans, and the Doom Patrol. With occasion you might throw in there Challenge the Unknown, and the Metal Men, but a lot of the time, a lot of these characters will either want to join either Justice League or the Teen Titans. It just depends upon what the writers of these books want to do. Brad Meltzer did not throw any of his conspiracy theory stuff into the book. It was actually a pretty good run. In the first arc, they pretty much took on basically Red Tornado to like a rogue, and they also took on Solomon Grundy in the first arc. And they also had a crossover with the JSA, well, Justice Society of America, which later led to the return of the Legion of Superheroes, the original version of them, which was a pretty neat idea. Then Dwayne McDuffie took over, and in his first few issues, he basically brought back I think they call them the Injustice League. Yeah, the Injustice League, and this by far is the largest incarnation that has ever been put into a Justice League comic. This thing is huge. My guess is they probably get inspiration from the Justice League Unlimited TV show, and this incarnation was referred to as Injustice League Unlimited because they pretty much based the lineup of the group mostly on the one from the TV show, with the addition of actually having Batman villains part of the group. Despite the fact in the show, for some strange reason, because they had the show The Batman on, they couldn't use any Batman villains for Justice League Unlimited for some strange reason. I have no idea why. It's just the way it was. And these were also a pretty good set of issues. And then after the events of Final Crisis, the Justice League at this point decided to disband because of Batman's death, along with Martian and a few other people. The book at this point was taken over by the awesome Leen Wein, best known for creating Swamp Thing and Wolverine. He took over he was a fill-in writer for a few issues, and Dwayne McDuffie was supposed to come back to the book, but he was fired prior to that, and basically the book was handed off to James Robinson. Now, I should point out that during Leen Wein's set of issues, they had it where they had veteran Justice League Vixen form her own version of the Justice League with Plastic Man. I think even Wonder Woman was doing there. Basically, they wanted to throw in some set of these characters. It was just a 3-issue arc before Robinson took over. I should point out that these 3 issues, along with issue 29, have never been put into a trade. Nope. For some reason, if you look up the DC trades, collect issues from Justice League Volume 2, for some strange reason, I have no idea why this is, but apparently DC thought it would be a good idea to skip issues. No joke about this. This is entirely true. Like, for example, in Justice League America Volume 2, When Worlds Collide, the book skips issue 29, and they do the same thing when it gets to Volume 7. uh, the Lean Ween issues are not in trade. Now, I've read the Lean Ween issues. I purchased them. They're not terrible issues. I don't get why DC decided to skip over them, but they did. And of course, right after Lean Ween wrapped up his few issues, which, by the way, they were really good. 29 is a Faces of Evil tie-in, and if I remember, I think it's Libra who that issue focuses on. And yet for JSA, Justice Society of America, their Face of Evil issue, as long as Terror Books Face of Evil issues, excuse me, they've been to the trade, but not Justice League's. I don't know why. The issue was written by the late great William Duffy. I don't really know why. And then pretty much right after when Robinson took over, this was of course by the time Robinson took over, it was after the controversial minis. It was basically his run was set after the controversial miniseries Justice League Cry for Justice, a series that a lot of people don't really like very much. I've read it's okay. It's not all as terrible as people tend to make it out to be. Especially with the whole thing of, in the first issue, people crying justice, and of course in the last issue, seeing the death of a child and the death of the main villain and of course the villain didn't show up like halfway through the series. Yeah, pretty much with the Justice League. Now, the Justice League that have been formed prior at this point, apparently they've reformed a panel, and then somehow after this miniseries wrapped up, that incarnation disbanded and was replaced with pretty much, from what I can tell, the Teen Titans. Well, the new Teen Titans, with the exception of Beast Boy. Yeah, with the exception of Beast Boy, they pretty much had the new Teen Titans, along with, I think it was like Mon-El. Let's see, who was part of this incarnation? If I can look it up here. If I can find it here. Okay, they added to the group, and these guys stayed with the group for pretty much up until the relaunch. They added Stargirl, Starman, Congarilla, Guardian, Mon-El, Donna Troy, Cyborg, Starfire. Pretty much this incarnation was formed by Donna Troy with Dick Grayson as the lead. But they also had Hal Jordan, Oliver Queen, Green Arrow, the Atom, and the female Dr. Light, all these new members. And about halfway through the run, most of the people just left. And if you read the first couple arcs, they're really not, like, the first arc is really not that good. It basically became a snooze fest. A little bit later on, it does become better. Like, there's a crossover with the Justice Society of America, which is the second time they've done it at this point in time. It was a pretty good crossover. It did lead to stuff in the Justice Society, but it didn't really much lead to stuff in the case of the Justice League. And then after this crossover wrapped up, they had the Eclipso arc, which by far was the arc that pretty much, in my honest opinion, a lot of people probably agree with me on this, was probably the best arc of the entire run, when Robertson brought back Eclipso, and also he brought back Dark Supergirl, which I'm like, didn't Loeb have her, didn't Loeb basically introduce this version of Supergirl, and then get rid of her at the end of his brief arc he did for Supergirl? But apparently, okay, fine. The arc also had a tie-in, also had a part to the Reign of the Doomsday crossover, which led into the final known crossover of Superman prior to Flashpoint. The run ended simply in the last issue where Batman decided to disband the Justice League because of everybody's other commitments in other cities. I should point out this is by far this is actually only our team. This is actually one of 3 teams that Dick Grayson has ever led in DC Universe. He led the Teen Titans back in the 80s. He led the Titans in the Titans book, both Volume 1 and 2, up until they replaced with villains. And he's led the Justice League. Just like his mentor, they both had a chance to lead the Justice League. Though, basically, though I've heard there was various things going on with Robinson's run, like editorial mandates. Starfire left halfway through the run just so she can be put over to Rebels, which I have heard from Tony Bedard that the reason why she was added to Rebels was because of editorial mandate. Though when she left, she basically left a note for Dick Grayson that she was going to space for some reason, even though she was still in love with him. I don't know why. But despite the fact Robinson's Run may be mixed, but they're not overall badly written issues. It's just that it has a very slow start, but it does get better after the first arc. So I do highly recommend trying out this 60-issue run. Yeah. It's just that I kind of wish DC would... I mean, they put JLA in a series of new printed trades. Excuse me. And yet they can't put Just Like America Volume 2 these two printed trades. I mean, the first volume would easily have the first 12 issues. Second volume, you can easily have like 13 to 24, and you can probably just do it. It probably won't take too long. I mean, how many trades would it take? I'd say about 4 or 5 at most to collect 60 issues plus a couple specials. And also, I should point out that during this period of time, about a few years into the run, they had it where Green Arrow and Black Canary got married. There was a wedding special for this, the Justice League wedding special. That's when they got married, which I think was an interesting idea to do. I mean, having these two marry. I mean, this has probably been building up since Kevin Smith basically resurrected the character back in 2001, and building this up over the course of a period of 8 years. This is by far a brilliant stroke of genius, despite the fact the relationship, the marriage didn't last too long, and prior to Flashpoint they were separated, not divorced, separated. Basically, Black Canary gave back her wedding ring. Yeah, that's basically what happened with that. Though I have heard kind of the reason why they couldn't put in any more known characters, like they couldn't bring in Wonder Woman. Well, Wonder Woman, I have heard that the reason why she wasn't able to be part of it, because of basically the whole reboot thing. Superman was going through the grounded stuff, and of course New Krypton. Of course, Bruce Wayne was dead, though when he came back, I'm like, why couldn't he rejoin Justice League? Oh, because he's busy studying at Batman Inc. But as for some other noteworthy members, even after they were resurrected, thanks to Blackest Night, which, by the way, there was some issues tied into Blackest Night, which I believe they were in trade. Now, unlike some other crossovers that companies do, Blackest Night did not interfere with actual stuff with Justice League. From what I can tell, they had already wrapped up the particular arc, and having a 3-issue tie-in dealing with Blackest Night was a brilliant stroke of genius. Especially as Blackest Night is an awesome event. I recently have read pretty much the entire event, with the exception of a couple one-shots. But yeah, it's really good. But I'm trying to think, was there anything else? Nothing I can think of. No. Oh, their first base operations was the Hall of Justice, which they finally brought into the comics, officially, anyways. And also they're based out of a new watchtower, which it's, from the look of it, when you look it up on the internet, simply put, it looks like it's kind of partially based upon, I would say, the first watchtower from Justice League, but painted a different color. It's more red, unlike in the show where it's black. Yeah, but it's not a bad idea to have a new satellite. That's basically what they call it, a satellite. Even though technically it's a space station. Oh, and by far, they're the only superhero team in DC Comics who basically are based out of a space station, while everybody else is based on Earth. In the case of the Marvel Universe, the only superhero team based on a space station has been the Guardians. But in the Earth-based team, none of them have ever been based in space. There have been some superheroes who have had space stations, but never superhero teams, which is kind of a big bummer for some of these characters. But yeah, that's really it that I can think of when it comes to Justice League. I highly recommend trying out this run. This run was really good. Most of it, anyways, with the exception of the first arc of Robinson's run. But overall, basically for 60 issues, having only 4 writers isn't too bad. Unlike, let's say, a book like Justice League America Volume 1, which had about Oh, I think about 10 writers over the course of 20 years. And one of the most prolific writers was Jerry Conway, which, by the way, he never got a chance to write this volume at all. I mean, yeah, they're written by basically, I mean, the only, like, long-time veteran writers who actually wrote this volume was their three I named. The only really, like, big veteran one was Lean Ween, who only did a few issues. But Brad Militer was the only one who actually was more of a writer who didn't write that much prior to this. I mean, the only thing he wrote prior to this particular book was Identity Crisis and an arc for Green Arrow. That's really it. And then after he stopped doing Justice League, he didn't do very much after that. He just basically went back to his novels and his conspiracy show. And the artwork was done by Ed Baines, which, by the way, if you look at the artwork for this particular run, none of the issues had terrible artwork. Oh, really, really good. Excuse me. Otherwise, though, that's really it. So, in the next episode, which will be the last episode, I'll talk about the Justice League. Next one, I will talk about the incarnation done by Jeff Johns. And up until the most... Basically, I'll go from just after Flashpoint. The entire 52-issue volume, I'll discuss that, even though I've already pretty much reviewed it already. And I'll talk about the current stuff done by Brian Hitch. And I'll talk about pretty much the other Justice League books. Not only just the regular Justice League book, but the 2 spin-off books. And Justice League United. Okay? So until then, I will see you there. Bye.